Good morning, 7th grade. Today's lesson will be on 1/8, divide integers. Please open up your math book and turn to page 53. Once again, please open up your math book and turn to page 53. I'll give everybody a minute to go ahead and do that, please. Okay, and as everybody is getting their book out and turning to page 53, let's quickly go over the rules for multiplication of integers. We know that positive times positive will always be positive. We know that positive times negative or negative times positive, where the signs are different, will always lead to negative. And then we also know that negative times negative will actually be positive. Let's go over a few initial questions just to refresh our memory on multiplication of integers. Class, if we have 6 times -4, what will that equal? If we have 6 times -4, what will that equal? I will go ahead and call on somebody. Okay, the correct answer is -24. My next question is, what is -3 times -7? I will call on somebody to answer -3 times -7. Okay, the answer was +21. We have two negatives being multiplied by each other, so the answer is positive, and 3 times 7 is 21. So -3 times -7 is +21. And now I'm going to ask a little bit of a different question. 5 times what number will give us -40? 5 times what number equals -40? I'll go ahead and call on. Okay, great. Yes, we know that 5 times 8 is 40. So 5 times -8 will give us -40. Now I have a few questions and I want people to raise their hand if they know the answer. My first question is, what is the product, and product means answer to a multiplication problem. What is the product of a positive and a negative integer? When we multiply a positive and a negative, what will we get? What sign will it be? Great, the answer is negative. And what happens when we multiply two negatives together? Will the answer be positive, negative, or it depends? Yes, great. The answer when we multiply two negatives is that it's positive. And now a little bit of a challenge question, but how can multiplication problems, or the strategy rather, help us figure out division? How can multiplication actually help us solve division problems? I'll take a few answers here. Okay, thank you for sharing. So actually, if we have a division problem, for example, 40 divided by 5, and we're not sure what that is, we can convert 40 divided by 5 equals blank into 5 times blank equals 40, right? 40 divided by 5 equals blank can be converted into 5 times blank equals 40. And we know that's going to be 8. So 40 divided by 5 is 8, because 5 times 8 is 40. Now, based on what I've just described, I'd like everybody to either put their thumbs up or their thumbs down to this question. Is it true that multiplication and division are inverse operations? If you think that's true, please put a thumbs up. And if you think that's false, please put a thumbs down. Okay, the answer is true, actually. Multiplication and division are inverse operations. They are opposites of each other. They undo each other. If you multiply two numbers, you can undo that multiplication by dividing. Okay, let's go ahead and look at page 53. Let's go ahead and look at page 53, and let's see what we have here. It says, I can divide integers. That is the task for today. I can divide integers. Under explain it, it says the shapes below are used to show the relationship between each of the four equations in the same fact family. We see that the blue squares are worth 8. The orange circles are worth 3, and the purple star is worth 24. And they've created this fact family using those three numbers. They've created 2 multiplication problems and 2 division problems using those 3 numbers. And the question they seem to be asking us it says, suppose the star represents negative 24. As of right now, it represents positive 24, but let's suppose it represents negative 24. What values could the other shapes represent? What value could the other shapes represent? Well, if the star is negative 24, we would need to find 2 numbers that multiply to negative 24. Since we know 8 and 3 multiply to negative 24, well, negative 8 and positive 3 multiply to negative 24. Remember, we don't want both of them negative, because if they're both negative, the 8 and the 3, then that'll lead to positive 24. We want them to be opposite signs so that it ends up being negative. Well, what if we didn't want to use 8 and 3? Could we say that, for example, 6 times negative 4 is still negative 24? Could the blue square be 6, and could the orange circle be negative 4? Why, of course. Please go ahead and jot down these equations in your math book. These are 2 examples of answers to that question. All right, what do you know about the square and circle if a star represents a negative number? Now, this is very interesting. What do we know about the star if the square and the circle, if the star is negative? What do we know about the square and the circle? Well, the square and the circle, if we know the star is negative, the square and the circle must be of opposite signs. They have to be opposite signs. In other words, one positive and one negative. They have to be opposite signs, because in order for an answer to be negative, its 2 factors must be of opposite signs. In other words, one positive and one negative. How about this next question? What do you know about the star if the square and circle both represent a negative number? So if we have 2 negative numbers, negative 5 times negative 4, what do we know about the star? The star must be, I'm going to go ahead and call on somebody. The star must be what? The star must be what? Exactly. If the square and the circle are both negative, then the star must be positive, because a negative times a negative is a positive. Go ahead and jot this down. In your math book, please. All right, and now the bottom of page 53 says, suppose the square represents negative 8 and the circle represents 3. Remember, the star is the square and the circle multiplied by each other. Use what you know about integer multiplication and the relationship between multiplication and division to write the complete fact family. Well, we know a fact family has 4 parts to it, 4 equations, 2 multiplication and 2 division. So let's start off with multiplication, because we know how to multiply integers. Negative 8 times 3 is 24. And 3 times negative 8 is negative 24. Negative 8 times 3 is negative 24. And 3 times negative 8 is negative 24. Now we just need the 2 division statements. If we have negative 24 and we divide it by 3, we will get negative 8. Right? Because 24 divided by 3 is 8, so negative 24 divided by 3 is going to be negative 8. And when we divide 2 negative integers, just like when we multiply 2 negatives, we will get a positive. This is the fact family with those 3 numbers.